Hey everybody, welcome back to the TSF Studios. I am TSF, your host. This is part 3 in basic land nav. This is part dealing with map procurement. And in this episode, we're going to cover what to do with the maps once you print them off. Episode 1 talked about where to get the maps. Episode 2 talked about how to process the maps on the PC before you print them out, how to get them ready for printing. And this episode, we're going to deal with putting it all together. All right, you're going to need a couple tools in order to do this. You're going to need a scissors. You're going to need some kind of Scotch tape. You can use the thin stuff. It's got to be see-through. Or you can go wide with some kind of clear packing tape. And we'll talk about the benefits, the pros and cons about that. If you didn't add the grid lines in some kind of paint program or PowerPoint or something like that, and you need to add grid lines to your maps, you're going to need a long straight edge and a pen. And if you want to be extra high speed, you can like get a highlighter just to highlight the grid lines or the grid numbers on your map if you want. Okay, so let's get started. All right, the first thing you want to do is you want to lay out your map. You want to lay it out so that you see what what order it's going to be in. Once you have the basic layout, of how your map is supposed to look, then you'll understand what we have to do. Basically, you have to decide which edge to cut off. Now, obviously, we're not going to touch the side, the margins or anything yet, but each sheet we're going to decide which border to take off on one side and the bottom. And you go ahead and do it. Now, you can bring get your kids involved in this, because it's kind of crafty. That's the way you can kind of talk to the old lady about, allowing you to do stuff during family time. Anyway, you just want to be careful and cut right along the boundaries there of the colored area. You got to be really precise on this because you're going to have to assemble these later. So you want to be right on the edge of the color in order to get it right. All right, so I've decided that I'm going to cut all of the right, or I guess the left maps. As you're looking at the map, the left side, I'm going to cut the bottoms and the center margins off of the left set of maps. So once we've done that, then we do the side margin right on the edge there. Right at the color. And it's really only the colored areas that you need to be precise. Okay, so basically, now that you've got that, you know that you're gonna line these up on the side, and the colors should match, and then everything should match like this. And if you cut it properly, if there's no white on there, it'll look seamless. Okay. It'll look seamless, and so you'll attach it to this. What I recommend is you have to do do them in rows. Do them in rows first. So you do the first two, right? Once you cut them off, then you'll tape these together. And then you do the next set and the next set, etc., etc. Once you have the rows done up, then you do the columns and you tape them, all together that way. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting these up, and then I'll show you how to tape them, because you don't want to. I'll show you how to tape them. Okay, so once you get to the bottom, right? We've removed the bottom edge of each sheet and the right margin. But once we get to the bottom, we don't want to cut off the marginal information here, so we leave it. But we still have to remove the inside, the right margin here. So don't just keep that in mind. Don't just strip this away. You need all this information, the declination diagram, you know, the scale, etc. So don't forget that. All right. And you can see, I don't know if you saw the other sheets, and I don't know if it's visible here, but there's a shadow of the printing area that will help you maintain your straight lines as you're doing this. Hopefully it's coming out on the camera. So right on the border there. Mostly important when you're on the map area. You don't want to be any white there. I mean, you don't want to cut away any of the picture, but you don't want there to be any white between here. Boop. All right, and like so. Okay, so now that we have our map trimmed the way it needs to be trimmed, now we just line them up to make these rows vertically. All right, just so that we can get them lined up, and there's a whole bunch of references to line up with, including the grid lines, which is another great reason to have them on there before you print it off. All right, the grid lines, the terrain features, the rivers, everything should line up, okay? And then what I recommend is that you use a Scotch tape, and you don't need to, you know, stretch it out over the whole thing. What you want to do is just put a couple pieces of tape for reference. And notice down here that we're off a little bit. It reads well. Move this up here a little bit. Okay, so you want the whole thing to line up, including the marginal information down here in this example. So the printed area lines up just a little bit. It's just right on the edge there. All right, and the same thing with the there we go, with the printed area down here in the marginal information. Okay, you want to make sure that it's all lined up. All right, so you put one small piece in the middle, and you want to make sure that that sucker is smoothed down. And then another small piece right in the middle. There we go. And we've gone ahead and we have all of our rows done up, all 4 rows, and you can tell what's coming up next. Of course, now it's time to tape them together horizontally. You knew this was coming, okay? But same thing as before. You know, once you line them up, you have all these points now with which to line them up, and if you cut it carefully, there shouldn't be any white in between. However, if you have, you know, if you made some wavy lines in your cut, then some white spaces are to be expected, and that's okay. You know, you want it to look as solid as possible. And like I said before, you don't want to use like a whole line of tape. Just a couple of small spots, maybe, you know, a piece of tape, maybe an inch long at the most. These are just being used for reference, right? You want to make sure that all the air is taken out from underneath that tape, that you can see the paper underneath very well. And it's funny that because of this, because of, you know, it's hard, it's easy to make mistakes where you place the tape, because sometimes, you know, you think you got the seam of where the 2 sections are connected, but you miss it, and so you'll favor one over the other. So you got to be careful when you apply your tape, okay? So you do that for all 4 sections. and your map will be built. But we won't be done yet. We won't be done yet. We will have finished a rough construction. Not quite done yet. It's not ready to go out. It's definitely not ready to go out in the field yet, and I'll show you as soon as I knock this out here. Okay, so I've gone ahead and trimmed the map of all of its extra paper, leaving the marginal information, the very basic minimum labeling so that I know what map this is when it gets folded up and everything. But I've gone and whittled down all the extra siding, made it square, it squared it off. You notice when it was printed, it was kind of at an angle. So I cut it so it's a little bit more standard shaped. Okay, but we're still not ready yet. We just basically have this map together, just held on by little pieces of Scotch tape. So the last thing to make this map ready for the field is acetate. Acetate, basically a long piece of tape now. We used to call this stuff combat acetate in the military because we would weatherproof all of our maps. What we got to figure out is, we know that it's not wide enough to go over the whole thing, so we're going to have to overlap. But where to overlap and how far do you go? What you want to do is you want to be able to seal this thing. And to do that, if you do both sides, you want a little bit of overlap so that when the other side comes around, it'll stick to the front, and it'll get a good seal and be waterproof, basically. All right, so we figure out how much we're going to need, and so we cut it right about there. All right, and this thing is tricky. What you want to do is invert it. Invert it so the sticky side is on the bottom. Bend it in half like this, and start in your center. You want to picture, just imagine or figure out how you can get a little bit of overhang on this. And then what you do is try and keep it in the center. That's why you want to, when you cut off your piece, you want to try and get some kind of overlap. Cut it longer than you need to, all right? And you just let it unroll itself over your paper. All right, from center out. All right, another battle staff skill. And then you wanna spread this out. Get rid of any air bubbles. At least on the paper, make sure that it's got good contact. All right, but you can see that I have just this portion right here, which does not have any waterproofing on it. So I have to cover that. So I've got to make a little strip of overlay. All right, separate the wax paper. All right, so the only part that's important to have stick on here is the part that's on the map covering the corner right there. And then I will take this piece and apply it to the bottom side of this. Meet the edge there. Make sure I'm covering the paper. There you go. And then I make sure that this is all smoothed down. And then what you do is you do the same thing for the reverse, because you see the backside of all of our seams, well, it all needs waterproofing anyway. So you got to cover the backside as well. Okay, so I went and finished the adding the acetate to the back. I ran out of I was at the end of the roll, so I had to like make little patchwork of the seal. So I've already trimmed the bottom of this off. What you want to make sure after you put the back end of the acetate is that you go around the edges and make sure that you have positive contact, acetate to acetate around the edges, because that's going to keep any moisture from getting in to your map and messing with the integrity of the paper inside the seal. All right, and then so I've gone around and I've made sure that all the seals or all the edges outside the map paper have binded together. And then what you want to do is trim the excess off, but you want to leave a little. You want to leave that contacted edge so that no moisture can get through. All right, so don't trim it. Don't trim your acetate all the way to the paper, or don't cut the acetate. Don't cut the acetate on the paper, because then that paper is susceptible to moisture. So you have to have this little lip around your map of clear acetate here. But you can trim it to make it look, neat. Get rid of any, ugly edges or bits or whatever. Okay, nice and neat. So what this does now is this enables you not only to have a waterproof map, but something that you can draw on that is erasable. Okay, so you can make marks on here with a map marker or something like that. Like we use in the military, Stadler brand permanent markers. They to mark our maps. If we have to draw graphics on them or waypoints or whatever. And that's pretty much it, man. That's how you put your maps together. There's a simpler way too. I mean, there's, and then you just have to fold your map to, whatever area you need to, whatever area you're operating in. And like I said, if you use a big thick packing tape, when that's underneath this acetate, it makes it a little bit harder to manipulate your maps, because these seams around where your where the papers would be like real thick, and this is thick enough with just the acetate, so you don't want to make it worse by using some big old tape. And that's why I say too, don't bother taping the back of the paper. You just tape the front, that's enough. You don't need to tape the back. That way your map will stay relatively pliant. I guess that's a better word, pliant. All right. So then you want to be able to fold your map to make it usable, or put it in your hip pocket or whatever to keep it on you. So you gotta train your map now to have that muscle memory of, this is how I want to fold it. And some people, I've seen this too, where some people will take their maps and actually cut them, and then they will cut their maps, lay them out on the acetate. They'll cut them how they want to fold them. They'll lay them out on the sheet of acetate. Good luck in getting it to stand out or to be flat while you lay your paper on there. And it's pretty tough, because as you lay each section of paper down there, it's not going to be even. And then if you're trying to, use that for any kind of continuity between terrain features and all that, it's just tough. But some people do that because and then they leave the gap between the papers, and then when they lay the backside of the acetate over it, that gap of not having paper makes a natural fold point. So that's something, you know, if you want to try that. You gotta train these maps, you know. But this is what I mean. They get, with the acetate, you get real thick products. I mean, well protected from the environment, all right, but bomb-proof stuff that might be a pain to use in the field, you know. So I'm gonna show you guys another thing you can do, which I do all the time. This is good for a bug out scenario where you don't know where you're going and you just have a whole collection of maps and you might be outdoors, and so you have giant maps larger maps that are going to give you more flexibility, you know, besides just your path, your route that you're taking to wherever your rendezvous point is or whatever. You have more terrain to look at, whereas if you're going out on a specific trip recreationally, or you have just your bug out route, let me show you what I would do for that. If you don't want to go through all this stuff, you're just taking a quick trip for the weekend. You don't need to build all this. You don't need to have a map this big in your pack, all right? Or you want to keep it down to basics, all right? Skip that. What I normally do is I will do up my map like I did in episode 2 in this series. And then what I'll do is I will take the map, zoom in to the route that I want to take, just the route that I need. And then I will do a screen grab of that and drop it onto a PowerPoint slide. I already have the lines done. All the grid lines are done in Paint, and that file is saved. I just open the file. I save it as a JPEG. I open the JPEG, and I maneuver that JPEG to where I want to where I need my area of operations to be. So if I'm parking in a parking lot and then I'm leaving on this trail, and I'm going this far, so I will zoom in, and based off of my needs of how detailed I want the terrain to look, I'll choose my framing for the whole screen, do that screen grab, and then drop it on a PowerPoint slide. And then I will print it out. And so I will come up with something like this. Now this is a 8.5 by 14 legal size document, all right? But all I'll do then, since I have this to everything I need, and what I'll do is I'll actually make a slide of all the information that I need. So I took the little corner of marginal information and I made a little box. I added I pasted it in here. And then on the other side, I took the declination diagram from the marginal information. I copied that, cropped it, and posted it in the slide so that I have all the information that I need in, well, this is actually 2 documents. This is a continued journey. Anyway, so it's a front and back map. As I get to where I need to go, I just flip it over and keep on going. But all I'll do is drop in a document protector. No lamination needed. This is lamination enough. I know I'm not gonna take my map and just leave it outside to the environment. My map is going to be on me. It's going to be in my thigh pocket, in a cargo pocket, on my person at all times, you know, with my compass and protractor and stuff like that. And there you have it. This folds up nice and neat. It's not, it's not bulky or anything like that. I just fold it up. 1, 2, thigh pocket, good to go. There is one caveat to using these though, and that is if you're doing precise navigation, like on this particular one, I see the trails that I'm on and stuff like that. I don't need to mark waypoints. I mean, I could if I wanted to, but if I did, what I would do is I would make witness marks on the acetate with the map marker, so that if my map slips out of place, because it's not a perfect fit, if it slips somehow, I just have to maneuver the map inside the acetate back to those witness marks, and I'll be back right on track of where I need it to go. Okay? And witness marks are basically 4 lines. You know, you have 2 for your easting or vertical lines, and then 2 across with the northing lines. And then what you do is, with those lines, you'll label the grid line numbers next to it. So this would be the 9-0, this would be the 9-1, right? This would be this horizontal line here would be the 3-5, right? And this would be the 3-6. And so I would label that, you know, in all 4 points, what those grid lines are, so that I have another way to match up the lines, you know, and protect my witness, so that I can move my map back where I need it to refer to any other waypoints or any other graphics that I might draw on here. Okay, which is this, you know, just the poor man's way of doing the big old full meal deal combat acetate version. All right, and there you have it. Better navigating with maps. I hope you liked this series. If you did, hit the like button down below. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook. Links are down below in the crotch bar. More coming soon from the TSF channels. Just you know, big headache with the day job and stuff like that. But I've still got a couple Sierra videos to crank out that are already shot. I just have to edit it, and they'll be coming your way soon. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this stuff, subscribe, tell your friends, go ahead and share it. And best of all, get out on those trails, get fit, because you never know what's coming around the pike. We'll see you guys later.